Welcome to Capitol Forum, interviews with Washington area business and policy leaders, giving us a glimpse into their lives, their careers, and how they're making a difference in the greater Washington area. I'm your host, Jack Kalavritinos, and today's interview continues our series of conversations with senior leaders at the McCormick Group. I'd like to welcome today Brian McCormick to the Bigwig Media Studios here at the historic Willard Hotel. Brian, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Jack. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Brian, for coming in today. And really, I'm looking forward to talking about your background, about your approach, about the McCormick Group's approach generally, and really what you've learned from the hundreds, maybe thousands of searches that you've done over the years. So tell me, Brian, why are you so passionate about executive search and finding the right fit between individuals and companies?
Well, I'm passionate because, from my perspective, it's the way that we help both the economy here in the Washington, D.C. grow, and also individuals that are currently in one of their stress points of their life when they're changing jobs. Our role is to find a fit to where, from a cultural standpoint, an individual fits with that organization, can find a home, can stay there and be productive over many, many years. And from an organizational standpoint, our role is to help them figure a solution out that'll help them grow and keep their talent instead of having to continually turn it over. From that perspective, it's success for both parties. For me, that's exciting to deal with.
We were talking earlier before this about how a lot of students don't really think about, because schools really aren't talking about executive search as a career path. Did you have any thought when you were in college or coming out that this was an area that you wanted to devote your life to?
No, not at all. When I was the typical college student. I went to school. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to come out and teach elementary school. I was going to go coach because I'd played ball in college a little bit. Came out of the business, and all of a sudden an opportunity presented itself, which was Bill McCormick, the CEO and founder of the McCormick Group, who started a search firm and basically made the call and said, "This is what I'm doing. You want to join?" So for me, it was an exciting opportunity. It was different after having tried, the educational route and deciding, that really wasn't for me. And yet my skill set and my talents fit the executive search world pretty well. Much like other people's out there right now who oftentimes, many successful senior recruiters in this business, have made that switch because their talents and their skills and the successes they've had in the past really fit very, very well in the executive search business, because there's no set pattern that says this person or this person will be successful.
Tell me about the philosophy that underpins the McCormick Group.
Our philosophy is relatively simple compared to most of the search firms. It's based upon ethics and integrity of providing a service to the marketplace. By that, I simply mean that our role is to find a solution that's going to fit both parties. We look at this business from the perspective of, do what we say we're going to do each and every day without hesitation, under-promise and over-perform for our clients, and treat people on both sides of the desk, whether it be the employers that are paying us and are hiring us to go do a search, or the candidate who's basically putting their career in our hands, treating them equally successfully through the process. So for us, it's very, very important that we treat them the way we want to be treated if we were in their position. And that's really, I think, the biggest difference. It's an individual business. If you look at the search firms, they're all going to list the same requirements that they do references, find quality candidates, service the marketplace. But it's really the service provider that you're hiring who's going to do your job for you. They got to know you. They got to know your organization. They got to know what you're looking for and what's going to be successful. And you have to trust them. You have to trust them to do their job. And that's where I think we excel, is hiring individuals with the integrity and the ethics to do this the way it needs to be done. Doesn't do any good to put together deals, put together placements, put together opportunities if they're not successful for both parties.
So it sounds to me like you are really digging deep into culture and then looking for that right fit. Because what you just described is really delving in beyond the paper of the position description, the paper of the resume, and really trying to find that right fit.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is resumes are a regurgitation of somebody's background, of their skill set. In today's world of of telecommunications and computers, you find that more organizations are using word searches to try to find the perfect person. And yet word searches have nothing to do with an individual's personality. What are their goals? What do they want to achieve? What they're good at doing? Our job is to get a client to look at, what are we looking to hire here, and how are we going to know? How are we going to evaluate that individual so that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, we know it was a successful hire? Nobody looks back at it 6 months from now and says he was successful because he had a degree in economics from Harvard. They look at it and say he or she has accomplished X for us during that period of time. And we try to get them to focus on what's the opportunity, what's the problem do they have, and what's the solution going to look like, not what are the key points, keystrokes on their backgrounds, because that has nothing to do with the type of an individual you're trying to hire. They need to fit culturally, or you're going to have a huge failure. Great example, if I have time to give it, is an example of a senior level individual that a major law firm hired as an executive director several years ago. And in doing so, they went out and they hired a regional partner coming out of one of the big eight, to come in and be their executive director. On the other hand, he came in and he was strictly an administrative person. He had not really operated in a partnership environment. And it was a horrible match when they went through the process. In the end, it cost them a ton of money to redo the search, go out and find the right kind of person, because they weren't all they were looking at was big eight, what was the background, education, years of experience. They weren't looking at what the cultural fit needed to be. Even though they had choices in that way. So we oftentimes get them to focus on what those choices are and what they need to look at from a cultural standpoint, so that when somebody comes to work, they're basically coming to work, and as I said before, looking for a long-term opportunity, not a 2 to 3 year stopover before they can move on.
Let's dig deep in terms of you've done this review of candidates, you've had these meaningful conversations about why they want to make the move, and you feel confident with, let's say, 3 candidates that you want to take to the client. Tell us about how your approach in terms of presenting candidates to your client.
Well, my tendency to put clients in it is they've basically given me a job description. We've basically fleshed out what they're looking for. So when I come back to them, I'm really talking to them about 3 things. Here's what the candidate can do. Now, that's based upon what their past performance is. Here's what they've done in their past performance. Past performance is the best indicator of future success. If they've been successful, here's what they are doing. This is what they can do for you. On the other hand, this is what they can't do for you. So if somebody's basically looking for somebody with extensive management experience, and we've found that diamond in the rough that's basically on their way up, maybe doesn't have 10 years of management experience, maybe has 3 years of management experience. My role is to simply say, but they can't do this. The second piece of it is, this is what they can do. This is what they can't do. The third thing I'm going to do is then simply say, here's why you should see them. This is what I glean from the marketplace when I find out what they've done, what they've successfully done, what other people think about them in this role. So that I basically say, now this is why you want to see them. So that oftentimes an individual that's going to look at doesn't have 100% of the written qualifications, or what the job description is. Oftentimes it's an individual that they're looking for. And my job is to bring and show them choice and allow them to look at that and maybe take some risk. And some of our best, to be honest with you, some of our best placements in the past have come out of individuals that maybe they hired that in the beginning they didn't think were going to be the best.
That is fascinating. I think our viewers are going to find that very interesting, because let's face it, personnel often is this black box that people don't understand. So we really appreciate you sort of lifting the cover off and letting us see what your approach is.
And one point, if I can, Jack,
Yeah,
I'll make on that is the fact that, yes, you're exactly right. It's a black box. And oftentimes that job description is written by somebody else. It's not even written by the individual who they're going to be working for. It's not even in that area. It's a personnel individual who's incredibly talented at their role in their job. But they're writing a job description based upon some sort of an issue that comes out. And they're really looking for keywords to put up in the on an internet to pick up when somebody sends in a half-written profile that they can deal with.
So what I'm hearing is, I'm sure this has come up, is that when you're talking to your client and you've got that piece of paper that maybe the HR department has put together, that you're asking, what does success look for you, Mr. or Ms. Client? And that might differ to some degree than that position description. So you need to delve into what is in their mind of what this candidate will be like in terms of a successful 6-month, 12-month leader.
Absolutely, because oftentimes they're going again off of a written box. It's we want X number of years of experience. We want a degree from X. We want this from X. Okay, we want them to be doing this, right? Not when we're talking to them, we want to basically look at it and say, how are you going to evaluate that hire that's working for you? 3 months from now, what do you expect him or her to have accomplished during that period of time? 6 months from now, what are you looking for as far as achievement coming from them? So that when you look at that, you can come back to us and say, wow, this was a great hire. This was the best hire that I've ever put together.
Okay, let's continue on this, and let's shift to an analogy of football. So I'd love for you to explain, we both love NFL football. I'd love for you to explain, how would you evaluate a key hire for a leadership role at a company the way a GM, let's say, in the NFL is evaluating 2 top-tier quarterbacks who have had incredible college careers? Maybe they're maybe they're free agents, so maybe they've had a couple years in the pros. Both are superstars, but there's obviously differences between them. How do you evaluate candidates like a GM should be evaluating those QBs?
Well, I think I look at it. I heard once a GM said that the quarterback is the hardest player to draft. Why? Because their statistics, their backgrounds, their records in college really don't translate very well to the pros, simply because of speed and other things that occurred. In our business, I look at it the same way. If I'm looking at evaluating talent, I'm really looking at what have they done to the people around them. Great quarterbacks in the league. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft choice when he came out. There are those that will honestly argue he's the greatest quarterback ever at this time, right? And it's because he was able to take those people around him, no matter who was playing. I mean, no matter if they were the 2nd or 3rd teamers when their number one starters were out hurt, he had the ability to raise their ability and win.
He has.
And he continues to do that even today. I look at talent when they're looking at hiring somebody. What have those people done with those that are around them, those people that are on their team? How successful was their team? And to be honest with you, were they willing to give credit to their team members for their successes? Oftentimes you see individuals who walk in claiming huge credits, huge accomplishments for their team achievements, without forgetting that they had 10, 15 people behind them that were doing all that, and all the credit was theirs. Those are individuals that we try to point out. What kind of a leader are they? Are they a leader that's going to grow men and grow teams around them and people around them who can then go on and do great things for the organization? Or are they going to look at somebody who's afraid of challenges from other highly talented individuals?
Well, that was fantastic. And I mean, to prove your point about Tom Brady, he goes to Tampa and a brand new team, he raises their level, they win the Super Bowl.
Right.
And it turns out to be the first home team winning a Super Bowl at their home stadium. So leave it to Tom Brady to continue to break records even when he's not with the Patriots. Thank you very much for joining us, Brian.
You're welcome, Jack. It was a pleasure.
And that wraps up another episode of Capital Forum. See you next time.